You with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
How is everybody doing today? We are back with another episode of the Wrightway Kickoff Show here on the TWSN YouTube channel. Before we get into anything, remember, hit that subscribe button. You'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media you like. But most importantly, find us on our website, TWSN.net, where you can get a lot of good content from a lot of the people here. And also, subscribe to the TWSN betting Patreon. We have a bunch of people who are on fire. If you were subscribed, you could have made some money on UFC last night. You could definitely make some money today. But, we got the whole crew here. We got Matt, Max, Aidan, Chris, and Marissa. As my man Nader already in the comments section. Let's go. I'm excited. So with that said, let's dive right in. We'll start with a matchup of 0-2 teams, because everybody loves winless football. We have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New York Giants. The Giants are 3-point favorites in this game, according to the sports book I check and I use for these. But I will say, as much as I love the Giants' odds in this game at home against a Falcons team that has a horrible defense, I still feel really iffy about it. I'll be honest. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I actually like the Giants here. I think the Giants just aren't a bad football team. I think undisciplined at times, yes. Daniel Jones looks like he's turned it around. He's been pretty good the last couple of weeks. If he just limits his turnovers, he's good. And I think this Falcons team is just really bad. This Giants team has potential. I think they play a lot better at home. We saw what they did against the Buccaneers last year at home. I think this is a game they can win. The Falcons, I'm just not high in the Falcons right now. I think that defense just isn't doing enough. I think Daniel Jones is going to be able to move the ball. The defensive line isn't going to get any push on that Giants offensive line, so I think Saquon Barkley will have some room to run this game, and whoever else they want to get involved. Falcons offense, I don't really hate the Falcons offense. I think they have some good. I think Matt Ryan is still a capable quarterback in the league. Kyle Pitts has shown he can be good. You have Hayden Hurst comes in as well, Calvin Ridley. But I think this Giants team is going to be able to pick up this first win. Because I just don't see him having as bad of a season as the Falcons are going to have this year.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
I may have been wrong about the Giants this season. I picked them to win the division, and they almost won last week. They should have won last week. But I don't really like the way they played, especially on defense. Daniel Jones has looked decent, but I'm not expecting that to continue as this, season goes along here. But I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I like the way that they pushed the Buccaneers last week. I think Matt Ryan might have found some footing with Kyle Pitts after a shaky week 1. And then, I know it's Eli Manning day for the Giants, but I don't know. I feel like some of the drama from the Giants wide receivers is going to bleed over into this game. We saw Kenny Galladay, talking about his targets. We saw everything with Tooney. I just don't know how the Giants get past that this week, so I'm going to take the Falcons here by a couple points.
Honestly, I'm taking the Giants here. I would not bet on the game. The Giants -3 line is not something I'm betting on. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Falcons cover it. But I will say, being from Jersey, growing up around the New York media, all that, I think this Giants receiver BS is so overblown. I think Galladay went off on the sideline, and everybody's like, oh, he's yelling at Daniel Jones. You listen after the game, he's actually talking to Garrett. It got fiery. Garrett's a pretty monotone guy. He always has been. Some people take him as a pushover, but whatever. He doesn't take stuff personally. And Galladay's a fire wide receiver. It seemed like I'm believing that whatever beef was squashed pretty quickly, especially Thursday night game. They should have won. I think, if anything, there's a chip. And honestly, I'm more worried about the Kadarius Toney stuff. First round pick. I get why they're not using him, because the quote going around social media this week was, "Oh, he hasn't played a lot of football, or it takes people time." And then I've been seeing Michael Pittman Jr. up to Justin Jefferson's last year's stats. All those guys had full training camps. Even Justin Jefferson didn't start producing until week 3 last year. They all had full training camps Kadarius Toney had cleat issues in his first ever rookie minicamp practice, was injured all throughout OTAs and training camp. Of course, he's not going to get the touches you're looking for, but his snap production is ramping up. You have Ingram back, so you're hoping you're going to be more versatile. You're getting all these guys back. Honestly, I do wonder whether they're going to get Kadarius Toney the touches he deserves. But the stuff where people have been criticizing him for not being played, to be honest, I totally get it. He's not overly refined wide receiver. Did not get reps with the quarterback. I'm throwing it to the guys who have been getting reps. It's that simple. So I don't buy this narrative that's being put out there about the Kadarius Toney stuff. Honestly, I think Jason Garrett's being smart, but I think Toney will eventually be worked into the offense in the next few weeks. Rookie receivers don't always start from game 1 to game 2, but they pick it up as the season goes on a lot of times if you want to look at those stats. Guys like Jamar Chase, who we're seeing this year, isn't the rule. It's the exception from what I've seen. But I'm taking the Giants overall here, but I would not touch this game with a 10-foot pole. I'm staying away from it. I'm going to touch I'd be more than comfortable touching the next game we're going to talk about. And that's the Arizona Cardinals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Arizona's -7.5. I know they're on the road, and I know they had a close call last week, but this is a team I feel really comfortable with. Honestly, I think Arizona is a team that's going to beat up on bad teams. I worry about them when they play the good teams. But, Max, I'm going to be honest. I'd take the 7.5 here.
I mean, it's hard for me to bet in favor of a spread that big in the league, but I wouldn't hate you for taking it. But I'll tell you this, man. As a Clemson fan, it's been already a pretty rough week. I think it's going to be even more rough after this game. I think Trevor Lawrence is not going to look too good. And a lot of it is because you have that elite pass rush from the Arizona Cardinals getting to him almost every single play. And like you said, Shaun, they're a team that's going to be that, a theme this year for them will be beating up on bad teams. And Jacksonville might be the worst team in football. So I expect the Cardinals to take care of business here. Take care of business pretty quickly. I expect Kyler Murray to do what he's been doing all year. There's a reason why everyone's betting him to be, the MVP this year, even though it's only been two weeks. I'm expecting a good game from that elite receiving core. And I think that defense is going to show everyone why they're legit this year. They had a bit of a down week last week against the Vikings. If it wasn't for a shank kick, they would have lost that football game. But I think people are sleeping on that defense, and I think today's a real wake-up call to the world to see the Arizona Cardinals are here, and they're here to stay. And I think they're a top 5 team in football for a reason.
Totally agree. And Aidan, Marissa, what are your thoughts on this game? Like, what do you think the Cardinals just go in there and beat them, even though it's a cross-country trip?
Yeah, I think that they go in there and beat them. I think the Jaguars aren't going to score until it's pretty much garbage time, and the Cardinals have already ran away with it. We saw them struggle against Tyrod Taylor in week 1, and Kyler Murray is a more explosive quarterback and is going to be a dual threat, and they have not done well against that this season. And Lawrence and the offense have not really established a run game, so they put a lot of pressure on Lawrence to throw the ball, and that's when he makes mistakes, and the Cardinals defense is going to capitalize on that.
No, they will. But Aidan, I'm gonna go to you right now. Do you think, like Max said, people have been saying Trevor Lawrence doesn't look great weeks 1, 2, not denying that. And I saw someone last night. They're saying how they always knew Trevor Lawrence was overrated. I'm gonna be honest. I think we're panicked. I think people are in their panic button too early. I think he's still gonna be a star. I think he could be just fine. What have been your takeaways about Trevor so far?
Well, he hasn't looked great. There's no denying that. But let's not say he's a bust or anything like that. It's been 2 weeks in his rookie year on a bad football team. It's way too early to call him a bust. I don't know what else to say. Look, he hasn't looked great. I'm not going to deny that, but he deserves more time, even after his rookie year. If this is a rough season where he throws, maybe a lot of interceptions, I could see that happening. I'm going to give him plenty more time. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great quarterback, and the only reason he wouldn't is if injury got in the way or something like that. But Trevor Lawrence is going to be great.
Look, let me add to Aidan's point really quickly, because I think if you gave Trevor Lawrence Mac Jones' situation with that protection, I think we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. And also, let's not take into account he has a guy that's never been a head coach in the NFL. I frankly don't think he'll pan out in the NFL. I don't think that's his style. And he might have the worst protection in the league too. I mean, listen, as a Dolphins fan, after what I saw last week, we might have the worst offensive line. Okay, I don't even know if there's a debate there, but not far off is Jacksonville. And that's not doing him any favors. So I think it's too soon to close the book and say he's a bust. I think if you put him in a good situation this early, you would see a better result. And I think he'll progress as the year goes on.
Agreed.
I think he'll be just fine. The guy's one of the most naturally gifted throwers of the football. And I wouldn't even just say just thrower. He's a quarterback. Certain guys you look at that, they exude confidence, they exude franchise, they exude future. He is still that, in my opinion. I have not moved off that tape. But speaking of rookie quarterbacks, we're going to go to the 11th overall pick in this year's draft. Justin Fields will be making his first career start against the Cleveland Browns as Andy Dalton is out this week with a knee injury. So, Chris, what are your expectations for Justin Fields' debut?
It's going to be highly anticipated. I'm looking forward to it. This Browns defense is going to be a tough one when you have edge rushers like they do. I still think this is a good opportunity for him. They have playmakers on offense for him, and I think they're going to be able to score. And I'm going with my moral lock of the week here. Didn't pan out last week. I went Cardinals minus 3.5. They won the game but did not cover, sadly, 1-1 on the year of my moral locks. But I like the over 44.5 in this game to hit. I think both teams are going to be able to score. Bears defense has kind of declined the past couple years, so I think the Browns are going to be able to score and then move the ball. They get OBJ back. I don't expect too much from this game, but I think he's going to be something the Bears will have to account for when they are on defense. But yeah, Justin Fields, I'm excited for his debut. I think he's going to be running around the field, pose problems for the Browns, try to keep it moving. Hopefully the Bears mix in some RPOs, read options for him to get his legs involved. I do like this game to be high scoring, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Justin Fields. And I wouldn't be shocked to see the Bears pull this one out over the Browns, but I would favor the Browns here.
So now, Max, I'm going to kick this one back to you real quick. You just said you don't like those 7.5 betting lines. It with a rookie QB? Would you feel more comfortable with this one? I honestly feel like there's a bit of a talent disparity between the Browns and Bears as well.
Yeah, I would feel a lot more confident on this one, to be honest with you. Look, I took the Bears last week over the Bengals. I was the only one to take that game. And a lot of it was situational in context, right? Like I said last week, Bengals coming off a hot win, big win for them. And that offensive line was relatively untested. I think, they went into a hostile environment and they just didn't play well, right? And the Bears, showed up. And a lot of it was Andy Dalton. Justin Fields, I'll be honest with you, he didn't look too great against the Bengals. And I understand it's only week 2. He just kind of got thrown in there. But I expect that trend to continue against this Browns defense that I think people are not talking enough about. I think they're a very, very good core, very good group of players. I think Justin Fields is going to struggle today. I think the Bears are going to, go back to, we're going to start having the conversation, should Matt Nagy get fired? Are the Bears going to be the worst team in football? This and that. That conversation we had at the end of week 1, I think we're going to have that conversation again because unfortunately for the Bears, they are playing a team that is right there, that should be winning their division, that is going to be competing for Super Bowl, frankly, this year. So I think it's just a tough spot for the Bears. And to answer your question, if I'm going to take a big spread, I would take it for this game, absolutely.
Okay, Matt, now I'm going to ask you a question, right? Let's just say the scenario that Max just put out, he's completely wrong. Like, Max looks like an idiot at around 4:15 today. Justin Fields throws for 400 yards or 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, leads them to an upset victory, and Max is just sitting there with his somewhat longer hair now and thinking, gosh, I was so dumb to say that in the show. How hard would it be to go back to Andy Dalton?
I mean, I think you kind of can't, right? Like, if he goes out there and beats this Browns team, I don't think you can go back to Andy Dalton. As bad as, even though he's been saying Andy's our starter if he's healthy, if Fields goes in and beats this Browns team, who a lot of people think is a Super Bowl contender, you got to keep him, because if you take him out, that's going to make him lose confidence, and you don't want to mess with the young quarterback's head. I mean, I personally don't see Justin Fields doing that. Like Max said, he didn't look that great last week. I think last week's win for the Bears was actually more about the Bengals shooting themselves in the foot rather than the Bears actually winning the game, because they only won and Joe Burrow threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight plays. They won by 3. And the Bengals were about a sack away from getting the ball back and probably winning that game with momentum on their side. But, I think Justin Fields is going to be a good quarterback in the league. I just don't think it's going to be this week. I think anytime you put a rookie quarterback in a situation like this, going up against a really strong Browns defense, he's going to struggle. They might get Allen Robinson more involved here, but I don't really see a scenario where the Bears win this game. Okay.
And with that said, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 3-point underdog or 3-point favorites, but they are injured. Alex Highsmith, one of their edge rushers, has a groin injury. TJ Watt already out. Ben Roethlisberger is not even near full health, and at his age, that is not a good thing to say. So with that said, I'll be honest, I live by something called the AFC. Well, it used to be called the Central Home Rules. My dad called it because that's what the AFC North was. But the AFC North home rule, where I just pick whoever's home the AFC North. I don't care about record 9 times out of 10. I don't care about anything else. But with that said, when the quarterback is going to be like at 50%, the best player on the defense is going to be hurt. The opposite edge rusher is also going to be hurt. And the offensive line is completely terrible to begin with. So you're going to be relying on Najee Harris a lot, but nonetheless, I am taking the Bengals in an upset here. And look, I have been pushing an anti-Bengals narrative weeks 1 and 2. And I'll probably go back to it week 4. We'll see. But to be honest, the bad loss last week, we've now seen that Bengals team in a hostile environment. Can they make sure the game doesn't get away from them this time? But TJ Watt not there? I actually think they can. I think the Steelers' biggest advantage here is coaching. I think this will be a test of Zach Taylor's aptitude as a head coach, if he can really compete, because that's a good coaching division. And I'm really questioning if he will ever be able to live up to the point where they can compete for a title or a playoff spot. But I think after today, I think I'll be a little bit more convinced that they can, because I've got a really good gut feeling with these injuries, with this team looking to make a statement, that they will in fact do that. Chris, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it is going to be a tough matchup for the Steelers. They have all those injuries. On our weekly pick'em, I did pick the Steelers to win this game. It was for TJ Watt. Obviously, TJ Watt being out is going to be a huge blow for them. But like I said, I think the Bengals, I don't expect, even with all those injuries, to blow them out. I think it's going to be back and forth, and it's going to come down to whichever team can make that last play. You might have to favor the Bengals in that just because you like their offense better. Joe Burrow is a lot better at this point in his career than Ben Roethlisberger is at this point in his career. And the Steelers, I think, just have more consistent wide receivers. I'm not too sure about the stats of T. Higgins, if he was declared out, or how much he's going to play today. They still have Tyler Boyd, have Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon should get a heavy usage today. I think if the Steelers want to win this game, they're going to have to rely on Najee Harris, get their first-round pick involved, not just running the ball, but get him in the passing game, try to give him some easy plays to get him in space, see if he can make some moves. Right now, I'd probably have to go with the Bengals just because of how beat up the Steelers are right now.
Aidan, what about you? Where are you riding with, my man?
I'm going with the Bengals. I'm going with the upset here. The Steelers are banged up right now. I don't see Joe Burrow throwing 3 picks again this week. He's one of those quarterbacks that typically bounces back after a bad game, and I think it's going to happen today. I don't think the Steelers, unless they blitz a lot, are going to be able to get a ton of pressure on Joe Burrow now that TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are out. And if that's the case, well, they're just going to get the ball out quick. And listen, even with T. Higgins out on the Bengals side, I still think this team's going to put up points. And I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to respond. Ben Roethlisberger's not exactly in his prime anymore. Plus, he's hurt. They're going to rely on Najee Harris, and he's very talented. But the Bengals can stop the run, and the Steelers have a bad offensive line. So I'm going to take the Bengals.
So I'm looking at the inactives for both sides right now, right? The Bengals are not going to have Trey Waynes. Don't love that. T. Higgins, honestly, I already think Jamar Chase is pretty much a star, top 20 receiver already, in my opinion. Guy's been absolutely insane. And Xavier Su'a-Filo. But you look at the Steelers side, it's T.J. Watt, Deontay Johnson, who at this point is basically the number 1 receiver there, and Alex Highsmith. That's maybe your top 2 edge rushers right there. It's going to be hard, even with as bad as this Bengals offensive line is, in my opinion. It's going to be hard to generate a pass rush there, and if you can't generate a consistent pass rush, you're not going to fluster Joe Burrow. I think
we're overthinking it, guys. I think the Steelers are a better football team. I think the Steelers will have the atmosphere. I think they have the psychological edge over the Bengals. The Bengals have been their little brother for years, and I think the Bengals have improved. But I just think that the Steelers just have that edge. I think it's going to propel them forward. I think it's going to be a more competitive game than it would have been before because obviously, like you mentioned, all of those losses, those are key guys, absolutely, on both sides of the football. The quarterback is playing hurt. But I just think at the end of the day, the Steelers are a better football team than the Bengals. I think they're coming off a really tough loss. And I just expect them to, I think Joe Burrow is going to bounce back and play well. But I just think this is a Steelers football game to win. I'm not overthinking it.
I'll be honest. I kind of think you're underthinking, but I'm getting logic because the roster is obviously better. The coaching is. I said the coaching advantage is the biggest advantage here. I just don't get And maybe I'm underrating or overrating the impact of these injuries, or because I don't think because I think I'm adequately rating the Bengals in my mind. But if you can't throw, and you're telling me Burrow's going to bounce back, which means he'll probably throw 2 touchdowns. He'll have a consistent offense. But if the offense isn't going to be able to work, how are they going to win? Like, what is going to be that thing that
bounce back? As in, I don't think he's going to be throwing 3 interceptions. I don't know if he's going to go out.
What do you think happens?
The way I think that this game can go, I think it's going to be a pass-heavy game, and I think that at the end of the day, the Steelers' secondary is a lot better than that of the Bengals. And I think that if the Steelers' secondary can generate some turnovers or can at least manage the game, bend but don't break, I like the Steelers to go out and win that game. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be competitive. And I just think at the end of the day, even with those losses, the Steelers defense, they can make a difference in this game.
Okay, now let's move on to another divisional matchup. We're doing the Indianapolis Colts traveling to play the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are 5.5-point favorites. And Marissa, I'm looking at the injuries here. Obviously, we know Wentz is going to play, and it's not unusual where you see ankles plural on an injury report, but that's where we are because honestly, he's kind of made of glass at this point. I think he's a very talented player. Just kind of always hurt. But Wentz is coming in hurt. But then I look at the other side. It's Caleb Farley. Bud Dupree's is a little bit banged up coming to this one. But I still feel comfortable after the Tennessee Titans team I saw last week, taking them 5.5. And I actually think they'll win by 8, 9, 10. I think they might win by double digits today.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're getting a game now where Derrick Henry has picked up steam. He finally has found himself to be where he was last season. And that's going to be a problem for Indianapolis, the Colts defense, to try and defend against that. And Wentz playing with his 2 ankle injuries with that Colts O-line that has not looked the same as it did last year, that's going to be a problem for him to try and really make any big plays. And if the Titans can generate pressure on him, he's going to have to stand there to take a sack because I don't feel comfortable with him running the ball, trying to get the first down. And I just don't see any big plays coming from this Colts team against the Titans.
And Chris, what do you think it takes or what do you think is going to happen today?
I just don't see the Colts staying in this game. I think Carson Wentz is too banged up. I think he probably shouldn't even be playing. They're probably pushing him a little bit too much here. And I just don't see him lasting long in this game. We've seen Carson Wentz does have a bunch of injury issues. Now he's definitely playing hurt. How long until he gets knocked out of the game? I think the Titans are definitely trying to show a bounce back after losing that bad week 1. They came back and beat the Seahawks last week. I think they're going to carry that momentum into this week, feeding Derrick Henry. Colts should have a good run defense, but I think Derrick Henry is still going to be able to run on them. I think Tannehill will be able to, they have better receivers than A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, be able to catch him off guard, get some passes in there. I just don't see the Colts. I think the Colts are going to have to go to their backup QB at some point in this game because I just don't see Wentz staying in.
I wouldn't be shocked, but if Wentz stays in the game,
mm-hmm.
I will say I do see this path where it's you control the clock, right? Jonathan Taylor's looked pretty good. You have Nyheim Hines behind him. Michael Pittman Jr. broke out last week. You've seen flashes of Wentz with Zach Pascal. If you could get efficiency from the wide receivers, a big player too on defense, because last week it was the Derrick Henry show all the way. Yeah. Derrick Henry literally ran them to victory. If you could sit there and say, hey, Derrick Henry's going to get his, but we're going to do everything to make sure Ryan Tannehill doesn't get his. You control your clock. You do the small things. You hit Pascal, Pittman, and you control that clock. There is a path to victory, but it does still involve your quarterback staying healthy and making a couple really nice throws and having to make a lot of plays within the pocket. And I don't know if you could do that on 2 bum angles. That's going to be hard. There is a path. I just don't know if it can be taken. But I think this is a good time to move on to the Washington football team at the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 7-point favorites against a Washington football team that should not be 1-1 because they lost on Thursday night and were given a BS penalty last week. That is what happened, and I will not have any discussions or arguments about it. But they do have a chance to rightfully earn their first win of the week against the Bills. So, Marissa, our Bills beat reporter here at TWSN, she does a great job. You guys should all make sure you follow her coverage every Sunday, even throughout the week. What are you looking for Buffalo to take down Washington?
Buffalo can easily take down Washington because Washington's defense has been relying so heavily on that front four to make up for their secondary that has not looked too great. You have William Jackson, who is really trying to learn man coverage and has not done a great job. You have St. Juste, which is a rookie that will most likely be covering Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs, I'm expecting to finally have a big play this game. And then you have Landon Collins, who is still coming back off of his Achilles injury and has not looked like himself. And not only that, but if you look at the Thursday night game, they could not really stop Daniel Jones from taking off with the ball, as he had 95 rushing yards. And we all know Josh Allen, he can be a dynamic quarterback and can throw the ball and can run it. So I just don't see how this Washington defense that was supposed to be this really great defense coming in this year and really has not looked like it can stop this Buffalo offense that is deemed to really explode at some point in time and make the big plays that they did last year.
And Aidan, I'll kick this one down to you, my man. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bills. Look, the football team, they're good. They're a good team. Their defense is good. Taylor Heineke's looked solid. I just think the Bills are the better football team. They're at home in this game as well. I know that week 1 performance against the Steelers scared some people. It did. And I don't think Josh Allen has looked like, the top 5 quarterback he did last season, or the same quarterback he did last season. I feel like there's been a slight regression there so far. And I know he's going up against a tough defense this week, but I still think this Bills team's going to put up points. Stephon Diggs, I'm waiting for that breakout play. As Marissa said, I think we could get it this week. And I think the Washington football team might have a little bit of trouble, with turnovers. Maybe just 1 or 2 that helps out Buffalo this week. Taylor Heineke threw a pick last week down in crunch time. And the Bills have a good defense, so I'm going to go with Buffalo.
No, I actually agree with you on the turnover thing too, especially with how the Bills have a very consistent pass rush, via pass rush as well that can get to the quarterback. They have Levi Wallace if he's healthy. I know he was kind of on the injury report, but even that, you have Trey White. Trey White's going to be on Terry McLaurin today, and that is the heart and soul of that offense. For Washington to win, you're going to need the Antonio Gibson we got last year down the stretch. We were getting 90 rushing yards, 60, 70 receiving yards, a couple big plays. I think McLaurin will always get his, especially with how they have a tendency to somewhat move him around. But I don't think you're getting 130 yards scary Terry. I think you're getting like a startled Terry today. I think you're going to get like 70, 80 yards, 6 catches. It's going to be
I like that.
Thank you. But no matter what, you know what you're going to have to do. You're going to need to get in Josh Allen's face. You're going to need to make him look like week 1 Josh Allen. And even with that said, you're still going to need Antonio Gibson to look like last year Antonio Gibson. But even, I guess, Matt, I'll ask you this. Some people worried about Antonio Gibson's snap share at the end of that Thursday night game. I attribute it to a running back position that's often injury prone. Thursday night game, short week. Gibson does have an injury history, them just kind of being smart and having confidence in their backup. Do you think there's reason to be wary of Antonio Gibson from a fantasy perspective or even as an overall production perspective?
No, I really don't. I mean, I have him in one of my fantasy leagues, and, he hasn't performed up to, expectations so far. But I think that also could just be, early season. We see this often with running backs. They start slow and then they pick it up midseason. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't continue here. He's dynamic, what we saw last year, what he can do. And if, he just needs to get back into that. And, I think part of it also could just be expectations for him. Maybe he just has to learn how to deal with that. That is something that we don't always talk about. These players come into the league, they don't have expectations, so they ball out. And then these other teams get film on them. People are expecting them to do all this other thing, so they got to learn how to deal with that. And I think that could just be part of that for him. But I am not worried about him one bit.
Okay. And now let's move on to the Mac Jones spectacular. We got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Patriots. Patriots are 3-point favorites. And I'll be honest, I like the Patriots all the way here. I get that Marshawn Lattimore will be back. I get that the Patriots have a couple injuries. What's his name? Trent Brown's been having injury issues. I don't care. Bill Belichick is going to make Jameis Winston his. This defense is versatile. It's athletic. It could force turnovers. Jameis Winston, I honestly think, has another rough performance today. But Chris, you watch this Patriots team inside and out. You cover them for TWSN. Tell me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think the Saints, it comes down to Jameis Winston. We saw week 1, we saw him throw 5 touchdowns. Week 2, threw a couple interceptions. I think Bill Belichick's defense is going to be able to make that second said week 2, Jameis Winston show up. Yeah, like I said, you got the 30 touchdown Jameis Winston and the 30 interception Jameis Winston. And I think Bill will force that 30 interceptions form to him. I do think the Patriots are going to have a trouble if Cameron Jordan lines up on the defensive left side of the line, because that right tackle spot is an issue right now. Trent Brown has been not Trent Brown. The right tackle spot's really banged up with injuries. If you don't have Trent Brown there. But I think the Patriots will do enough to get this game. Like I said, they have a couple injuries. Saints getting some guys back. Patriots are at home. It's going to be a trip. Saints are kind of like don't really have a home right now. They're kind of moving around. No really comfortability for them right now. And I think Mac Jones is going to be another solid, easy game for him. He's not going to need to make any deep throws. He's going to make the easy throws. Patriots running back should be able to get yards here and there. They'll be able to push him over just to set up Mac Jones for another easy game.
And Aidan, there's honestly a guy I have in my head today breaking out, and with that Eric McCoy, the center, out for the Saints, I think we see Christian Barmore's, first big impact today. I really liked him out of Bama. People saw him as a boom or bust. I saw him as a boom. That dude just has crazy natural athletic talent. I think you see a big game out of him. Do you think Patriots fans should be excited from what you've seen so far, even going back to the Bama film?
These first 2 weeks have been up and down for Barmore. You see some of the pass rushing ability, but it's against the run is really where he needs to improve. So I could see him getting some pressure up the middle. For his size, his athletic ability, it's insane. He can really kind of push the pocket and really rush the quarterback, but the question is against the run. So I don't know what his role is going to be today. Devon Godchau's really struggled as well so far this season. The interior of the defense has just been weak against the run. I don't think Barmore is going to be the solution to stop that, but if they want to get some pressure, in Jameis Winston's face with the pass rush, I'm going to Christian Barmore today.
Okay, Matt, now let me kick this up to you, my man. Do you think there's any way that, we said, I guess me, Aidan, and Chris were overwhelmingly taking Patriots this one. Any chances Saints or a path to victory for the Saints here?
I mean, anytime that you're facing a rookie quarterback, I feel like the other team has a chance. Mac Jones has looked really good so far. They're 1-1, but they probably should have beaten the Dolphins week 1. But I'm taking the Patriots here, but I do think the Saints have a chance because, you make Mac Jones uncomfortable. He is still a rookie quarterback. And, let's also not forget that Sean Payton's on the other side. It's not like they're going up against some bad head coach that doesn't know how to do anything. Sean Payton's a very good head coach. And I think this Saints defense also wants to prove that last week they just kind of, they just didn't show up because they blew the Packers out in week 1. I think, like I said, I'm taking the Patriots here, but I do think that the Saints can win this game because if they can just pressure Mac Jones, he might make some bad throws that lead to interceptions.
That's what you hope for. That is always the path to victory. But now let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens at the Detroit Lions. The Ravens are 7.5-point favorites on the road. Ronnie Stanley is out, if I'm correct. They've had injury reports all week. I'll be fully honest. I am running the Detroit Lions betting, but I'm taking the Ravens to win this one outright. 7.5 on the road where your left tackle's out. I'm looking at the injury report right now, or at least the latest one last night. It's Stanley, Derek Wolfe, Deshaun Elliott, Tavon Young.
Love that. Yep.
Just Lamar Jackson will be fine, but he's sick this week. Limited participation in practice. I like the Ravens team. The win we saw last week, I said it before the season, Lamar Jackson was my preseason MVP pick because that dude is that special and his stat lines are going to be that gaudy. But I do not feel comfortable betting 7.5 on the road, especially with the Lions team that has shown the ability to rack up garbage time points. Max, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree with everything you just said. I think it's going to be a little bit of a trap game for the Ravens in the sense that it'll be much more competitive than maybe they anticipated going in. A lot of, for the same reasons you stated, a lot of injuries. Lamar Jackson is definitely not going to be, 100% in terms of his health. And at the end of the day, if you look at the past 2 games, albeit against strong opposition, the Ravens have been, they've been in the thick of things. It's been competitive, but they haven't really been able to, play like they have in years past where they go out and once they take a lead, they capitalize on that and they dominate teams. Maybe this is the start of it today, but I don't see it. I think this Lions team has also shown a capability of staying in and competing in football games. Look no further than last week's primetime game. Yeah, eventually, the Packers did their thing, but for most of that game, it was a competitive football game. It was a one-score game, and people were shocked that, Jared Goff was making some of the plays he was making, that the Lions were staying in. I think the Lions are going to make this a competitive one. I'm going to take the Ravens outright because I think the Ravens at the end of the day are a much better football team. They're trending in the right direction, but the Lions are definitely going to make this a tough one. So I completely agree with everything you said, Shaun.
I got to jump on that point with Max real quick. We saw that Monday Night Football game with the Packers. They were in that game, and then it started to downpour, and Jared Goff couldn't throw the ball anymore, and they couldn't come back late in that game. So had that rain not come back, I'm not saying the Lions would have won that game, but they probably would have kept it within a score instead of getting out of hand there because they just couldn't pass the ball at the end of the game.
And Chris, we have a comment here to Amber the over. The over-under in this game, I believe, is 50 right now, or like 49.5. I'll be honest, I'm taking that over.
Yeah.
I'm abusing that over. I think that's a very good over right there. But Marissa, I'll go to you. Do you think there's a chance the Lions take this game with the injuries, with being at home, and honestly, even with some impressive loss, as weird as it sounds, impressive losses to begin the season?
I don't think there is, because we've seen that Baltimore is a very heavy blitz defense, and Jared Goff cannot handle that. Sure, the Lions O-line has been pretty decent this year, given expectations going in, but he just cannot handle the pressure. He cracks under pressure, and with Baltimore being one of those heavy blitz defenses, I just don't think it's a good matchup for Detroit to actually really win it. They keep it close, but they don't win it. It's Baltimore.
I completely agree with you. I also want to, since you talk about their pass rush, want to spotlight Odafe Owe, the rookie first-round pick out of Penn State. But I'll be honest, I was a question of him. His sack production did bother me. But through 2 games, that dude's a stud. He's his natural athleticism is perfect fit for the Wink Martindale defense. The guy's going to be a stud. He's going to be a double-digit sack guy at some point in the future. If he doesn't get there this year, I think in the next 2 to 3 years he is that. That guy's great. But now let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites. Honestly, this spread's a big one, and I don't want to touch it. Matt, I like the Chargers as a team. Frank Clark being out, and I believe Chris Jones coming in injured does make me very wary of that spread, along with just Justin Herbert's natural talent and ability to keep teams in the game. What are your thoughts?
I mean, the Chargers have played the Kansas City Chiefs well, recently, but I in no way can see the Kansas City Chiefs losing 2 games in a row, especially with this game being in Arrowhead. They're going to be playing pissed off after the way they lost the other day to the Ravens. They were, if Edwards-Helaire doesn't fumble the ball, the Chiefs probably win that game. But I think the worst thing that could have happened to this Chargers team was Baltimore winning the other night, because Patrick Mahomes knows he needs to play better. This Chiefs team knows they need to play better because they have the Super Bowl on their mind. So do many teams, but this Chiefs team was an overwhelming favorite for a lot of people. Herbert's going to get his numbers, and that Chargers defense is not bad either. But when all said's done, Mahomes and the Chiefs are coming out on top here. I cannot see them losing 2 games in a row.
And I guess I'll kick this one down to Aidan. I'll be honest, I'm taking the Chiefs in this one too. I like the Chargers a lot. They're my dark horse Super Bowl team, but I just don't think they're ready to beat Kansas City. And to be honest, the way that they lost down the stretch when I feel like they should have beat Dallas last week really bothers me. And I don't think Mahomes will track down the stretch 2 weeks in a row. That interception last week against Baltimore was awful. So are you riding with me and Matt on this one?
Yes, I am. Look, the Chargers, the way they lost last week, I completely agree. That was an underwhelming game. And I picked the Cowboys. I was expecting a little more from the Chargers, specifically on offense. But the Chiefs in this game, look, I don't see them losing 2 games in a row. I don't see the defense playing as bad as they did last week. Malik's been preaching this all week. They're going to have that bounce-back game. They're going to play pissed off. I actually agree. Now, the Chargers are still going to put up points. They're going to keep this competitive. Matt said it. The Chargers have played the Chiefs close. They did last year, too, when Justin Herbert came in for his first game, with the punctured lung, Tyrod Taylor and all. But the Chiefs will still win this football game. The spread is a bit big, but Kansas City. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay, and Chris, let's talk about this 7-point spread. Do you feel comfortable touching it?
No, I mean, it's like you could go either way. I think you could definitely see the Chiefs covering. But at the same time, this could be a game the Chargers keep close. It comes down to the last drive of Patrick Mahomes, which seems like a lot of those games have been coming down to from at least the final drive. Yes, I wouldn't touch this. I do think there's a good chance the Chargers cover here, get a late score, and bring it within like a few points. But I have the Chiefs winning outright, but I wouldn't touch the spread.
All right, let's move on to the New York Jets. Zach Wilson, after 4 atrocious interceptions last week, will ride into Mile High to play the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are 10.5-point favorites. And Max, I'm going to be honest, I would not be against touching this spread.
I'm going to take the Broncos, but I like the Jets with the points. Last time I checked, I think it was about a 10-point spread. I'm not sure what the line is at right now. I mean, I think Zach Wilson, I'm also a believer in Zach Wilson. Yes, he played horrible last week, but I just think that he's due for a bounce-back game. Bradley Chubb is hurt. There's a lot of injuries on that Broncos defense. I think the Broncos should win that game. I think their offense is strong enough to go out and put on points, but I do expect a better outing from Zach Wilson. I think 10 points. Again, I wouldn't touch the spread personally, but if I did, I'd probably take the Jets with the points, but I'd like the Broncos outright.
I agree with the injury part. I kind of agree. We always talk about how the altitude, the air is thicker in Mile High. I'm somewhat worried about the ball traveling out there. Tevin Coleman's going to be out. I mean, this should be the Michael Carter breakout game today, if we're being honest. I'm hoping we're going to see a heavy dose of him in the passing game. But Marissa, I guess, what are you really looking for in this one?
I completely agree with them establishing the run. After Wilson threw those 4 interceptions last week, they're going to want to play more conservative to give him a little bit more of a confidence boost, and I can see them really relying on that run game to give him that confidence boost. Mix in a few short passes because that O-line is not great, so they're going to need to get the ball out of Wilson's hands fast if they do end up throwing it, because this Broncos defense, it is legit, and that secondary is legit as well. And I could see them really giving Wilson problems if he tries to throw the ball downfield. So I think the Jets do keep it close, but I'm giving the edge to Denver in this one.
Okay, now let's go to the Miami Dolphins at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are 3.5-point favorites against Jacoby Brissett's special with a bad offensive line. And I'm going to be honest, after what I've seen from this Raiders team, they come into this one undefeated, if I'm correct. I'm taking them to cover. I'm taking them to win. Aidan, what are you thinking about this game?
I'm still not a believer in the Raiders' big picture, but we've seen them get off to hot starts before. They've gotten off to a solid start this year, and now I'm looking at this Dolphins team without Tua. Jacoby Brissett did throw the ball, 40 times last week, and he was thrown into the game, but didn't look fantastic. I'm going to take the Raiders here as well. They're at home. There's a lot of reasons to take Las Vegas. But as I said, I'm still not a believer big picture. This is still a good Dolphins team, even with Tua out. I see them playing pissed off a little bit today. You lose by 35 points, get absolutely embarrassed in a divisional game. I see them coming out, fired up, but I am going to take the Raiders.
And I guess, Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going with the Raiders in this one. They've beaten the Ravens. They beat the Steelers. Those are two teams that are pretty impressive. They beat to open the season. I'm with Aidan. I don't see this Raider team big picture being overly great, but I do like the fact that they started out strong here. But for the Raiders, I'm not going to say it's a must win because it's only week 3, but if you can stack up wins like this, you play in a division with with the Chiefs, with the Chargers, with the Broncos. This is a game that you want to win, especially with Tua out. And I know Max has talked about this before, but this Dolphins offensive line, it might be the worst in the league. Yet I don't hear many people talking about it. All offseason, it's, the Bengals haven't done anything to their offensive line. The Bengals offensive line is terrible. They're going to get Joe Burrow hurt. But where has that been for the Dolphins? Because the Dolphins offensive line is pretty bad too. And unfortunately, it just got Tua hurt. I don't know. I'm taking Vegas in this by a lot.
So I'm going to ask Max a question. Max, I know you're a superstitious fan, so don't make a prediction if you don't feel the need to. But how would you manage Jacoby Brissett in this game today?
It's very hard to answer that question. I think you got to establish the run, but with that disgustingly horrible offensive line, I don't know if you can establish a run game. To be honest with you, I think Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby are licking their chops at this one. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to be taken to the ground a few times. I think this offense is just disgustingly horrible with Jacoby Brissett. I'm as you can tell, it really bothered me the way that they performed last week once Tua went down. It was just, Jacoby Brissett just couldn't get the ball moving. I think now that Will Fuller is going to be back, hopefully that opens things up in the passing game. Maybe him being there with Preston, he's easing back in. Preston Williams. Devontae Parker's been pretty decent as of late. Now they started incorporating Gesicki in that. I think maybe keep targeting Gesicki. Obviously it seems like Jacoby Brissett and Gesicki will have a little bit of chemistry. So I would say go to him on the outlet. But I'll be honest, I don't see a way the Dolphins win this football game. I think that I'm going to take the Raiders to cover. I think the Raiders are going to win. I think at this very moment, even though the Dolphins defense is going to try their best. Listen, even in that 35-point win for the Bills, the defense didn't look bad for the Dolphins for most of that first half. The only reason why they didn't get out of hand in the first half and that Josh Allen didn't look great was because the defense did their part and they played really well. But when the offense is literally incapable of putting up points, there's only so much the defense can do when they're on the field all the time. So, the defense, I'm sure, is going to try to play their hardest. But when, I'm not confident after what I saw last week. So I don't know what you tell Jacoby Brissett. I guess try to find the open targets, try to find Mike Gesicki, try to incorporate Will Fuller a little bit because I know that the Raiders have a shaky secondary. But that offensive line, man, Jesse Davis should not be starting for any team in the NFL, in my opinion. And I think that, I don't even want to talk about it. I like the Raiders. I like the points. That's it.
I'm sorry that I put you through that, Max. I do give you my sincerest apologies. But for me, if I'm the Dolphins coach, if I'm Brian Flores, I've watched Jacoby Brissett since his days in New England. I'm trying to run some read option. I'm trying to make it known that I'm willing to run the ball with Myles Gaskin because I think that opens up Brissett's legs a little bit. But also, I'm doing a lot of short stuff to Jalen Waddle. The guy's explosive in the open field. He's explosive after the catch. I'm going to hit Gesicki over the middle. I'm going to try to isolate him on linebackers he can mismatch on because I think he will be able to beat those Raiders linebackers. And then I'm trying to use Waddle's explosiveness after the catch. I'm trying to keep Brissett from having to throw too many deep balls. A lot of Waddle on slants or outs, let him beat one or two men. Slowly march, slowly do your thing, and the points will come. Do you play smart, simple football, nothing too complex, and then you ride that defense that you've ridden for the 3 years now for Brian Flores. That defense has been stouted since day one he gets there. They've always overperformed. And the Raiders have a tendency to underperform against teams that they should beat. I'm taking the Raiders here, but it's not a lock. I don't know. I know Chris, Max have their mortal lock things. I don't really do that, but if I did, it wouldn't be the Raiders. There's a reason the spread is only 3 and not one of the many 7-point spreads we're playing this week. It's because the Dolphins do have the capability to stay in this game. It's just a matter of will they. And I actually think this game remains relatively close. I think Raiders end up winning by a touchdown, 6-7 points. But I would not count the Dolphins out of this one. Honestly, I think that's going to be a pretty good game. But now we're going to go to my game of the week. I know everybody's got San Francisco, Green Bay, but personally, my game of the week, the Seattle Seahawks at the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are the most unlucky 0-2 team I've ever seen. You have a top 3 running back in football, fumbles in overtime, screws you over there. Your kicker's been automatic through 2 weeks. Can't hit it from 37 as the time's running out. Kirk Cousins should be 2-0 right now. Kirk Cousins at least 1-0. He led a game-winning drive. The kicker just didn't finish it. But you should be now you know you have something to prove. If you're Mike Zimmer and you keep losing these close games, you know that seat's going to get a little hotter sooner than later. Seahawks are 2-point favorites, but at home, in front of my home crowd, I know I need a win. I'm taking Minnesota here. Chris, what do you think?
I have to go the other way. I have to lean the Seahawks. I think this Vikings team, I had to go against you there. I think this Vikings team is just on the decline. I think they had their playoff run, and I think now they're just guys are getting older. Kirk Cousins just doesn't have it anymore. Offensive line, they just haven't built the offensive line up enough. Dalvin Cook is out. Could expect to be a game from Alexander Madison, but obviously Dalvin Cook is your workhorse back. It's going to hurt. You're not going to replace him with anyone on your team. And I just don't know how this Vikings defense is going to play. You have Russell Wilson has been connecting with Tyler Lockett, and I've been saying this first 2 weeks. The Seahawks are a first half football team, first half of the season football team. They kill in the first half, go down in the second half. I think this is another game where they can take a lead in and just hold on to it. Obviously, they had a tough break last week, not being able to hold on to that Vikings win. Against the Titans. So I think they're going to come out mad in this one and try to really hammer the Vikings. And like I said, I think you are right. I think this is going to be it for Mike Zimmer. I just don't see this Vikings team just getting over the hump.
Oh, dude, we got to disagree here. Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, been pretty good. Like, we saw this Cardinals defense completely make Ryan. We saw those Cardinals defense to be so good that Taylor Lewan had to publicly apologize on Twitter to the fan base because Chandler Jones literally ate him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and actually had a little bit of dessert while he was at it. That defense was that good to what we saw last week is a Titans offense that can drop 35. They limit Derrick Henry. And then Kirk Cousins comes in and drops 30 on them. Like it was nothing. Should have dropped 36. And then week 1, they should have beat the Bengals. I don't see a way you keep losing these close games. I don't think Kirk Cousins is elite, but I think the Seahawks secondary is absolutely atrocious. And Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are 2 top 20 receivers. I think they're going to eat like crazy today. I think the only way the Seahawks defense contains this offense is if Bobby Wagner is doing crazy things in coverage. It's going to come down to Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks playing their best games of football because there's not elite pass rush, there's not elite secondary, but I do like the linebackers over there. I'm taking Seattle. I'm taking Minnesota here outright. Matt, what do you think?
I'm with you, Shaun. I'm taking the Vikings here. Seattle's defenses does not look good. Their offenses looked okay, but their defenses just look really bad. And I know Dalvin Cook's not going to play, but I still like this Vikings offense. And like you said, they've been very unlucky. They're a couple bounces away from being 2-0, and then the narrative on this team is completely different. And let's also just not forget, this is the home opener for the Vikings. They've been on the road for the first 2 games. There's going to be 73,000 people in that stadium screaming "Skol" over and over again. And I went to a game a couple years ago when it first opened, and it's very intimidating. I get the Seahawks are used to it, but that's a very intimidating thing to look up and just see the people just doing that over and over again throughout the entire game. I really think the Vikings are going to have a lucky break here, and I'm taking Minnesota. I've talked to a few people out here in Minnesota about the Vikings. They are very high on this team despite being 0-2. So I'm sticking with the Vikings for this week.
Not to mention, it is a vulnerable decision, right? Chicago, obviously, with the whole Dalton, Matt Nagy thing. We're talking about how Nagy's hot seat might be getting hotter. Boom. Not a fan there. Detroit might be a bottom 5 team in football. Even Green Bay, you have to wonder which team is Green Bay, week 1 Green Bay or week 2 Green Bay, where they come out and win. But even they scraped by Detroit on 3 Aaron Jones receiving touchdowns. That type of production will not be week by week replicable for even a guy as good as Aaron Jones. He's not really receiving back. So you're seeing vulnerability here. You're Detroit. You're Minnesota. You can go win today, and you're right back in this division race. So I think this is a big game. I think they win it. But let's go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to go, Max, what are you thinking here?
I want to give a shout out to Marissa because we're the 2 that are back in this pick right here. We have the LA Rams to beat the Bucs outright. I think the Rams are a top 3 team in football. I think the Bucs right now are trending to be the best team in football. But I think this is a trap game for the Bucs. The Bucs have looked shaky this year, guys. I mean, yes, obviously they ended up blowing out Atlanta, but that was a pretty closely competitive half. And I think Atlanta's a terrible football team. And also, obviously, that game against the Cowboys, that was not a great look for Tampa Bay. And I think that, that it's a very Patriots-esque team in the sense that September isn't really the month you're going to see the best out of them. I think as the season progresses, they get better. And I think that, LA in front of the crowd, new stadium, you have Matt Stafford playing the way he has been. That defense is trending in the right direction. I think it's going to be competitive, no doubt, but I just like the Rams in this one. My gut's sticking there, and that's where I'm leaning.
Aidan, do you concur with Max and Marissa?
Listen, I am taking the Bucs in this game, but I can absolutely respect it. I said on the Game Changer show on Wednesday, this is a tough game for me to predict. I love this Rams team. I think they are one of the best teams in football. Max, you said top 3 team. I can respect that. I absolutely love this Rams team. I had Matt Stafford winning MVP this year. I could definitely see them winning this football game because, they are kind of Patriots-esque. September really isn't the month. We saw it last year as well. But I am going to go with the Buccaneers here. It's a tough game, but I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady in this one. Sunday Night Lights. Tough Rams team, but they're bound to lose a few games. I see this being one of them. So it's definitely a tough game for me to predict. Honestly, maybe the toughest of the week, but I'm going to go with the Buccaneers.
I want to keep hearing you guys' takes on this. Marissa, Matt said you're somebody who's riding with him on this game. You are a Matt Stafford believer, which I am too, but you are an LA Rams upset Tampa Bay Buccaneers believer. Tell me why.
I'm looking back at what the Rams did last year against Tampa Bay. They had Tom Brady's number, and anyone knows that the way that you beat Tom Brady is you pound the A-gap, you get pressure right in his face, you get him off of his place and try to get him mobile, and he just makes irreplaceable throws, and he throws those interceptions, and the Rams know how to do that with this defense led by Aaron Donald. And Tampa Bay's secondary has not looked too great. You look at what they did in week 1 with the Cowboys. They gave up, I think it was like 400 passing yards for Dak Prescott. And then last week with Matt Ryan, they weren't too great either. So I think, yes, we didn't see this Rams defense against the Colts, not the Rams defense, this Rams offense against the Colts last week be too explosive. But I think, honestly, that they were holding back a little bit because they know how big this game is. And I think this week you're going to see this Rams offense with Matt Stafford come out firing on all cylinders and just take advantage of that Tampa Bay secondary, which seems to be their biggest weakness.
All right, and Chris, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, in the weekly pick, I did pick the Bucs, but right now I am kind of leaning the Rams just because I think there's a lot of momentum going the Rams' way. I mean, personally, I think the Bucs are going to make it back to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But they're a team that's not going to go undefeated, obviously. They're going to get some loss here and there. Making a trip to LA, I think, is a really good chance for them to pick up that first loss this season. Antonio Brown is out, and I think that's huge for their offense because that really limits what they can do, really, in terms of receiving threats. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who I feel like hasn't shown up too much in the stat sheet this year, and then Gronkowski. And the Rams, I think, have a great defense to try to counteract that. I think you can stick Jalen Ramsey on any of those guys, and he can really shut either one of them down, whoever you choose. Aaron Donald is still a force to be reckoned with, even with the Buccaneers' offensive line that they've built up. And you have JPP out on the defense side of the ball for the Bucs. And so I think the Rams are going to be able to do a lot. We've seen how good Cooper Kupp has been this year, just getting them open and getting them in space. I think the Buccaneers don't really have the stop for Cooper Kupp. I think he can get some yards here and there, and he's going to really gash them.
All right, and we'll just go full roundtable here. Matt, Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Los Angeles Rams?
I think these are actually the two best teams in the entire NFL. The Rams are my Super Bowl pick. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but I have the Bucs winning today. But I think one of the worst things that could happen to this Rams team is the Rams actually beat Tom Brady today. Because as we've seen throughout his career, if you beat Tom Brady during the regular season, you typically don't beat him in the playoffs. We saw it happen last year with Drew Brees and the Saints. They beat him in the regular season. What happened in the playoffs? So I'm not saying the Rams obviously don't want to win this game because they're going to want to win this game. But I think if the Rams do beat the Buccaneers, that gives the Bucs somewhat of an edge if they do meet the playoffs, because Brady just doesn't lose to teams like that, at least what we've seen throughout his career. I'm going with the Buccaneers because I just think that the Buccaneers are going to go into LA today and just win this game. The Rams looked good last week against the Colts. They did almost lose. But I'm sticking with Tom Brady just for today. I really like what I've seen from this Bucs offense, and the Rams defense has been a little shaky so far. I mean, they played the Bears. They beat the Bears, but then they were a little shaky against the Colts. And I just think the Bucs do enough just to slightly edge the win here.
I 100% agree with Matt. I'm taking the Bucs here. I don't think the Rams. There's a reason this game's a 1-point spread. It's because it's going to be a damn good game at home. I can totally see that home crowd being the difference maker right there. But in the end, Brady has a tendency to ascend in these kind of moments. He gets better as the year goes on. But I feel like he knows this is a statement game. Age 44 Brady, I feel like he still brings the mentality he did when he was a 22-year-old from Michigan that nobody cared about. He brings that same grit, that same grind. And I think it's going to elevate today. I think it elevates the people around him. And honestly, I think we talk about you could put Jalen Ramsey on any one of those guys. They shut him down. But I don't think there's an answer for Rob Gronkowski. Guy's still top 7 tight end, in my opinion, the way he's looked the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm taking the Buccaneers here, but let's move on to some Sunday night football. The Green Bay Packers at the San Francisco 49ers. The Packers are 3-point underdogs. The 49ers are at home. And with I can never say his first name, Elgin Jenkins, the left tackle, I believe already out for this game. That's a rough one that I don't see them overcoming. I'll be honest, I'm taking the 49ers here. Marissa, what do you think?
I'm taking the Packers for this one just because I don't see Rodgers not carrying that momentum over that he finally created again in that Monday night game against the Lions. I feel this being a very trench-heavy game because Green Bay's offensive line did allow Aaron Rodgers to get sacked 3 times, and Nick Bosa last week for the 49ers got 2 sacks alone. But I just think that the Packers have a established run game once they get it going, and the 49ers defense, that's one of their weaknesses going into the season is that run defense. They gave up a ton of yardage to Miles Sanders last week for the Eagles. And with Aaron Jones, with what he established last week against the Lions, I'm giving this one to the Packers.
Okay, Chris, what do you think here, my man?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup. Packers offensive line has not been great, and now they have injuries there. 49ers defense line has been great. But on the flip side, their secondary is really thin right now. They really don't have much depth there. So we'll see. It's really coming down to if the Packers can adjust their game plan, knowing that they're not going to really give Aaron Rodgers too much protection. They got to take some quick throws, get some guys open. They have Devontae Adams. The 49ers don't really have a guy that can cover Devontae Adams. I picked the Packers this week, and I think if the Packers can adjust their game plan a little bit and not try to take too many deep shots, maybe get Aaron Jones involved, get A.J. Dillon involved, see if you can make it easier on Aaron Rodgers to get the ball out of his hands quick. I like the Packers in this game. 49ers offense, I think I'll see how I feel with the 49ers offense after this week. We'll see how they can play. Obviously, the running back looks like Elijah Mitchell is out. Raheem Mostert is already out for the year. But they always seem to have running backs that can just fill in and get yardage for them. So I don't know if that'll be too big of an issue. But if I had to pick one way, I kind of like the Packers in this one.
You brought up something I wanted to touch on. And you talk about the 49ers running backs, and you're right, great running scheme. But there's one guy who was the most hyped up person in fantasy football that I bought the hype into and drafted him in the 10th round in probably 2 or 3 leagues. I know Aidan loves him too. I think Aidan said he picked him up on the waiver wire and on his Twitter. Trey Sermon, right? I agree. It was too early to cut Trey Sermon. I saw other people do it in leagues I'm in. But to be honest, this is my make or break week for Trey Sermon. Everybody is hurt. Like quite literally everybody in that backfield. This guy was supposed to be the 3rd round, come and break it. I liked him. I didn't love him, but I loved Elijah Mitchell. I was a big fan of him, but even I was like, okay, Sermon's a better prospect. The fact that Mitchell's been out touching Sermon so clearly is a major issue in my opinion. And if Trey Sermon can't produce this week, if he doesn't do it, I'm ready to cut bait with him, Aidan. What about you?
I actually kind of agree with you because this is the week, right? Like, they're hurt. They're banged up. Trey Sermon, the opportunity's right in front of him. He's had a good week of practice, according to Kyle Shanahan. This is his week because once Jeff Wilson's going to be back in a couple weeks. Elijah Mitchell should be back next week. I'm not really too sure, but like they have a lot of guys. And if Trey Sermon doesn't show up this week, I think he's going to be buried away for the next few months. Maybe towards the end of the year, he comes back on a little bit. But if he doesn't prove himself this week, I think he gets buried back into that depth chart and loses a lot of that fantasy value.
All right, now, Matt, I'm going to kick it to you. What are your, or Max, or Matt, I did, oh my gosh, sorry. I just like, my eyes glanced weird. And my eyes deceived me. But Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think this is a entirely mental game for the Green Bay Packers because recently they just have not been able to beat the 49ers, and I think this is where they need to prove to themselves they can beat this team. They struggled with them. I didn't really like what I saw from the Niners last week. They struggled with the Eagles. And, the Eagles aren't a bad team, but if you're the Niners, who a lot of people really like this year, you should be winning that game by a lot more, at least in my opinion. I think this is going to be a good game, but I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers here. Aaron, Rodgers, I believe he grew up a 49ers fan, and he wants to be a 49er. I just think he's going to go out there and just ball out in front of these Niners fans and show them what they're missing, basically, what they could have had if they decided to go with him rather than draft Lance or stay with Jimmy G. So I'm going with Green Bay here.
Okay, now let's move on to Monday Night Football. We have an NFC East matchup for the ages. Jalen Hurts against Dak Prescott. This is where legends are made. Right here. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point underdogs on the road in Dallas. And I'm going to be honest, I'm taking Dallas here. The Eagles left tackle, Jordan Mailata, the guy that just paid $80 million. He's been dealing with injuries. Andre Dillard's going to start in his place. Honestly, first-round pick. Andre Dillard's looking like a bust right now. Really hasn't panned out. He's supposed to be the slam dunk tackle of that class. Not a superstar, but you felt like he should be a steady starter, and he just hasn't been that. He's been injured. He's been ineffective. But even that, I'm taking Dallas to actually go 2-1. And honestly, I think after today, we're going to look at them and be like, tomorrow they're in firm control of the division. Max, what do you think?
Finally, I hit my mortal lock last week. We're back to 500. Okay, we're working back slowly. Chris and I are at par right now, so I kind of like the way we're trending. This is my mortal lock for the week. Monday night mortal lock. Give me the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Eagles. I think the Dallas Cowboys, this is their division to lose. In my opinion, they are, as I have them as high as a top 10 team in football. They are number 10 in my power rankings. I think that defense will continue to improve. They already showed signs of last week of improvement. Look at the way they handled that explosive Chargers offense. The secondary surprisingly showed up, and I was stunned to see that. I think that this defense is going to continue to progress under Dan Quinn. I think we're going to see that against, in my opinion, a beatable Eagles offense. I think that offensive line is, like you said, Andre Dillard's going to be starting. I think that pass rush, even without DeMarcus Lawrence, is going to be able to get after the quarterback. I think that the Eagles secondary, in general, their defense will not be able to cope with the offensive prowess of this Dallas Cowboys team. Finally, the run game showed up, both in Zeke and in Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard had himself a day as well. And obviously, the threat that comes with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. So I just think they're the best team in that division. I think they're the most talented team in that division. And I expect them to win this football game, and that's my mortal lock of the week.
Okay, now I'm going to kick this one over to Marissa. Do you agree with Max, or do you think he kind of looks dumb right here?
I 100% agree. I have loved what I've seen out of this Cowboys team. They have shown that they can rely on Dak Prescott to throw for however many yards he wants, or they can hold him back a little bit and rely completely on this run game to lead them to victory. And this defense, everyone mocked this defense going in the year. Oh, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. I've seen this defense be pretty great this year. Maybe not stellar names that are household names everywhere that you think of. Besides, really, Micah Parsons has broke out so far this year. He is a linebacker, and he was playing defensive end last week, and he did pretty great at defensive end. He got 2 sacks on Justin Herbert with the Chargers O-line that is actually pretty decent this year. So I have the Cowboys winning this. I think the Eagles, I like the Eagles. I think they keep it a little bit close, but I just don't see how, looking at the trenches, I don't see how either side of the Eagles' trenches can be able to keep up with Dallas.
All right, and I guess to finish us off today, Aidan, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm going with the Cowboys as well. I had them winning this division, and they've looked really good throughout these first 2 weeks, beating the Chargers last week, giving the Buccaneers one hell of a fight in week 1. I'm not big on this Eagles team either. I'm not a Jalen Hurts believer. I'm just not a believer in this football team. So I'm going to go with Dallas. They're at home as well. It's Monday night prime time. I know Dallas is a team that, tends to disappoint, but I like this football team a lot. I like them a lot more than I do the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to take them pretty comfortably here.
Okay, and with that said, that will conclude today's Wrightway Kickoff Show. Week 3, we still got plenty more weeks to go and a lot of good content. We have live shows pretty much every day here. So like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, find us on our social medias because it'll just bring you right back here, or it'll bring you to TWSN.net where you can get a lot of great articles. Or really want to make some money off of us, subscribe to our Patreon. It's as little as $5 a month, and you will be making money almost every day. We have a lot of great gambling analysts here, a lot of really smart people, and it'll pay off for you in the long run. We absolutely promise. And if you don't believe it, we post a lot of our results on our social media pages, so you could go find out for yourself. But with that said, thank you guys, and have a great
We do need to cover Thursday night football. We did say that in the.
Okay. Thursday night football game this week. That's going to be the Bengals at the Bengals and the Jaguars. So I guess, Marissa, what are your thoughts on that game?
It's the Ring of Honor game for the Bengals. I can see them completely coming out there and winning this. The Jags, as I mentioned before in the Arizona Cardinals preview, I have not seen really much that I've liked from the Jaguars. And this Bengals defense, they have been really dominant, and I can see them completely pressuring Trevor Lawrence, getting through that offensive line that the Jaguars have, and dominating this game. And Joe Burrow, he's going to light it up against this Jaguars defense that has not really done anything either.
No, and I to be honest, I don't love either of the teams in this game. I'd take the Bengals in this one, but Aidan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd go with the Bengals as well. The Jaguars, no offense, they're just not a great football team. Marissa said it. This is the Ring of Honor game for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I like the Bengals this year. I do. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're a solid football team. Maybe a bit streaky, sure. But they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like the Bengals here.
No, I think I like the Bengals too. But now, sorry about that little disruption, guys. That's going to conclude this show. Remember, subscribe to the Patreon, subscribe here, and we'll see you guys next week.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well, you better know now because it's